welcome back to the Irish Racing Channel. Back with another episode of Formscan in association with Tony Bet ahead of a massive weekend in Dublin, the Dublin Racing Festival at Leopardstown. I'm delighted to be joined by Tanya Stevenson to help guide us through all of the action across the weekend. Tanya, getting declarations through for Sunday now, so we'll preview the full weekend and it looks like a brilliant card across both days.
Yeah, I was on tenterhooks looking at Sundays to see whether certain horses are declared. They have. There's some interesting matches or superb races, shall we say. And please don't be blinkered just by the fact that obviously Willie Mullins has got multiple entries in the race. There are some value each way.
Definitely some value each way and some nice big fields in some of the races as well. So I think we'll just get stuck straight into it because plenty to go through. 8 grade ones across the 2 days. We're going to focus mainly on the grade 1 action, but give a shout to a couple of in the handicaps towards the end of each day. To start off on Saturday, we'll go straight into the first grade 1 on the card. It's the 1:15, the Nathaniel Lacey novice hurdle over the 2 miles, 6 furlongs. And there's a hot favourite in here from the Willie Mullins yard. Final demand in here at 7-4. Super Sunday, who was second in the Lauders at Naas last time, 5-1 under Patrick Mullins again. Sounds victorious, 13-2, and Jasmine DeVoe, 8-1. I think it's 12 bar those, Tanya, or 9 bar those. Sorry, Declan Quiddy's Mozzie's sister in next in the betting. I suppose to start with the favourite, Final Demand. Very inexperienced coming into this, but Paul Townend obviously liked what he saw in Limerick that day. Form looks good, second and third, both winning their next starts. But look, did he impress you in Limerick, I suppose?
Yeah, you have to say that he did impress, because when you watched it at Limerick, he looked as though that he won. You could compare it to a horse going down to the start. It was that simple. And you've also got to be impressed because, as you just mentioned, Timmy Tuesday came out and won at Ayr. The form not only just won nicely, and Final Demand looked as though, I think he won by, was it 15 or something? Could have won by a lot further than that, because as I said, you can compare him as if he was going down to the start. And so the form does come with it is robust, but I sense that this is a very strong race. I mean, obviously everyone's honed in on Final Demand. It's one of the horses they're looking forward to the whole weekend, but please, as I said earlier, there's some good value to be had, and it's a strong lineup against Final Demand. So he's certainly going to get the examination, which he didn't have. He wasn't challenged at any point, and this is where we're going to learn how these horses, if they do indeed need to battle, how they're going to cope with that.
Yeah, for sure. And my worry about Final Demand coming in here is his inexperience, like you mentioned. 1-1 and a point-to-point, win to Limerick, won his maiden hurdle. Plenty of his rivals in here have big festival experience, big race experience. Jasmine DeVoe, champion, bumper winner, obviously hasn't impressed over hurdles so far. Has the cheek pieces on, maybe that might help his hurdling slightly. I thought Super Sunday was kind of the obvious one for me in here. We went to Willie's a couple of weeks ago, and my question was, did he really want this extended trip? But Willie seemed to think he did. I questioned him pulling quite hard, and they said they could put stuff on and to stop him pulling, and it looks like that's what they've reached for here. First time hood, first time tongue strap. It should help settle him. And I just thought that race in the Lawlers, the Yellow Clay kind of got the first run on him. He ran quite well in behind that day, and I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him up on that here. A couple more you've mentioned, like Pray Tell for Des Keneally could run a nice race. He's already a graded winner over hurdles, a 9-year-old now, but still quite lightly raced. Look, rated 1-3-4, probably shouldn't be good enough to win this, but I'm hoping he can run a nice race for a small yard. Wingmen as well, I thought, look, stepping up in trip could improve him as well. At the bigger prices, what were you kind of looking at?
I was definitely looking at the little poppet, as I'll call it, Pray Tell, because it comes into the race with form over further, which is brilliant. And I call it poppet because the way he jumps is not that big, and yet can't wait to jump over the next fence, and jumps over it economically. As soon as he gets to the other side, he runs away from the fences. He's got so much energy as well. I can understand why they've dropped it down in distance. There's going to be no problem with that. The handicap has been across it as well. Look how the handicappers thought, oh my goodness, this is one that's got so much energy. Seems an incredible value price, and obviously hasn't got the Grade 1 experience. Just a note on Jasmine DeVoe, obviously we see the horses that beat in the bumper, but it hasn't grown up Obviously you've been to Willys and you've seen them. Just felt to me that, having looked at the subsequent runs this season, just looks tiny and hasn't muscled out yet, and needs to be cajoled, and comes with style and grace rather than the roll up your sleeves or the enthusiasm of Pray Tell. And as for the other one that you've already mentioned as well, the Wingman line of form, where his Wingman's gone on and taken on the yellow clay, and literally has taken on the yellow clay, even despite that being stable companion, and tried to run alongside it, but in the end that was going to be too much. But that brings in some strong form, so they've fallen down the preference order. Pray Tell probably because it hasn't got the grade 1 form, but it is going up in ratings, and I think the step down in trip will make it go up further. It'll have more energy to expend in the closing stages. And Wingman, you wouldn't want to get in a battle with that. If that can lay up with about in between the second last and the last with the yellow clay, you do not want to, because I think the barometer for this race is how close you got to the yellow clay. Final Demand's in the right place, top of the market, but I'm going to go for Pray Tell each way because I just love the little horse's enthusiasm.
Yeah, I can see the case, definitely. It's hard to find fault with Final Demand's performance in Limerick, but still, he's so inexperienced. I think this is maybe one of the races you can take on a hot shot, maybe. Pray Tell, definitely see the case there. Grade 3 winner in Cork. And it's a race which has produced good horses. I think Search for Glory and Hidden Valley Lake won the last 2 renewals of that race. So he beat a horse called Milena Sixo of Gordon. I actually quite liked him coming to that race that day. But I just think, look, a 9-year-old, but hasn't a whole pile of miles in the clock. I think Des was saying in his interview afterwards that he was kind of halted by injury, and this could have been a leading novice hurdler years ago if he got a clear run of things. So I can definitely see the case for Pray Tell, 16-1, probably the smaller yard, making the price a little bit bigger there as well. Wingmen, I think stepping up in trip will show him in better regard, and a Super Sunday has to have a right shot in there, I think, as well as one of the shorter price ones. But we'll go on to the 150. The juvenile hurdle, grade 1, and this looks like a real good showdown. It's Gavin Cromwell with the favourite in here this time. Hello Neighbour, 7-4, bit of a rematch with Lady Vega Allen. They obviously met here at Christmas in a grade 2 event, but Paul Townend chooses St. Lucia, a great pretender mare, getting the £7 off Hello Neighbour as well. I suppose we'll start with the favourite, Tanya. A first-time hood on. It was very impressive, though, that he was able to take that grade 2 event on first start over hurdles.
Yeah, it certainly was that. But how much could we tell of that race? Because we could only see it if they come through the veil of mist and fog. The visibility was low. What we could tell, that the pair of them, Hello Neighbour and the Lady Vega Allen, who will meet each other again, they were in a dour struggle right across the line. There's a whisker between them in the end. It's hard to scrutinise the jumping. That's why I'd like to be across. But it was a really fast race. It was only 4 seconds slow. And that's what I'd kind of like to emphasise. When you look back to Final Demand, I think that was in Final Demand's race, and the previous race was 30-something seconds slow. When you take the Christmas Leopardstown form, some of the races are either 2, 3, 4 seconds slow, so they really are racing throughout, and that maybe exposed Final Demand, or maybe he'll just relish it. But coming into this race, Hello Neighbour and Lady Vega Allen, they've got no problem going racing as soon as the tapes go up. There's none of this sort of going along at a sedate pace. They both have got class, they both got speed. And for me, what might be an issue for Hello Neighbour is the giving some weight away. Well, you have to give the weight away to Lady Vega Allen again, and St. Lucy, which will get a steer into that 8 minutes earlier at Musselburgh. Not that we need too much, only to say, because Lucas Tipple runs at Musselburgh in the 142. We know that St. Lucy's good, but we'll see just how good potentially at Musselburgh, I don't know. But once again, in this race, I'm going for something at a bigger price. But obviously you went to Willys. Did you see St. Lucy? Did he mention that, or was that he was bringing out the big guns?
Yeah, no, St. Lucy got a good shout, but Lady Vega Allen seemed to be the one he was most keen about when he was going through his list of juvenile hurdlers. He kind of mentioned her as one who could go right to the top. So I was maybe slightly surprised to see Paul Townend go for St. Lucy. And just watching back that race at Leopardstown at Christmas, I know you said, as you say, like they go into the fog and it's hard to see what happens when they come back out. But from the bits we could see, I suppose, Lady Vega Allen probably ridden for a bit of cover, trying to settle her. Maybe she was a little bit keen. And Hello Neighbour kind of obviously ridden a bit more handily than that, and she was always kind of playing catch up to that. So I could definitely see a case for her closing down the gap there. She came with a steaming run towards the end of that race, from what we could see. I'd probably favour her over Gavin Cromwell's Hello Neighbour, getting that £7. And Willie seemed to talk very, very favourably of her. St. Lucia obviously got a great mention as well, and the fact that Paul Townend made the choice as well. I can't imagine it was an easy choice to make, but I'd probably be siding with Lady Vega Allen here. But you were saying you have an each way shout in this one.
Yeah, I don't want to be defeatist. I see there's 8 runners. Let's hope there's not a non-runner. I don't want to be defeatist because I think this runner potentially has got every chance of winning. He's a little bit of a character. He's gelded. I think that's the case. I'm talking of Wenrock of Gordon Elliott's. He beat Galileo Dame and they will meet each other again. But I felt that even though he won by 2 lengths, he pulled himself up as they jumped the last. His ears were flicking back and forward and he was thinking, oh, I've got no friends with me. I think I'll... but when you get into a race like this, he'll have plenty of friends with him and he can run into it and the race will be in front of him for a lot longer. The reason I like him so much, if you go back to the previous race, which was at Navan, he finished behind a horse called Total Look and Beyond Your Dreams. And he finished so well. He was ridden really, really quietly in that contest. Okay, he put in a couple of novice jumps, but you expect that of these youngsters. They're going to make a mistake here and there. But even after he made the novice jump, he got back in the bridle and he travelled so well. And I think that's a bit of his naughty character, which I like the looks of. So coming up to the last, if he's in there, he's a fair price. And I mentioned that I like the former Total Look because I think that subsequently came out really well. I think it was on Monday, wasn't it? And finished third and caught the eye of many people. And he's possibly a bet for me he is a bet for me for the Cheltenham Festival Total Look. Should he come out, he was coughing and pulled a shoe, but Wenrock got really close to it, only 4.5 lengths behind. So I think that's just real value in that contest. Once again, top of the market for me, totally correct. But by swallowing up all your percentage of your value, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to horses like Wenrock, who've got a little bit of character.
Very good. Yeah, and I can definitely see the case. He was really, really impressive winning here at Christmas time. 18 to 1 looks a big price about him, but I'm definitely with Lady Vega, and I just thought the way Willie spoke about her, and I just watching back that run, from what we could see, if she was maybe ridden a little bit closer to the pace, I could see her taking over Hello Neighbour here. But it looks like a cracking contest there. Should tell us plenty about the juvenile scene here. We probably have a bit of catching up to do with the British contenders for that, but this looks like a good race all the same. But we'll go on to the next grade 1 of the day. It's the 255. The Goss Irish Arkle, and we've got a real showdown here. And the top 2 in the betting, Majbert at Atlantique from the Willie Mullins Yard. Majbert currently second favourite for the Arkle at Cheltenham. The Triumph Hurdle winner from last year. We've only seen him once over fences so far, when he was very, very impressive, winning in Fairyhouse, I thought. And at Atlantique, stepped up, I'd say, from his hurdles form. I thought he was really, really impressive winning in Nace, so I wouldn't rule him out of this either. Firefox for Gordon Elliott. Geno Lapan is, I thought, an interesting one in here. Probably one of the biggest horses in training. Caused a massive upset here at Christmas time when he was 150 to 1 winner of his beginner's chase. 25 to 1 here. Wouldn't be as much of an upset, but still an upset all the same. This looks like a really good contest, Tanya.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, Atlantique is absolutely dripping with Grade 1 form. But no wins at the level. He's on chase debut at Navan. He beat Waterford Whispers. That was a nice win. That's a win that you expected. He was favourite, and he was kept away from his rivals, and sort of the same against Firefox. But I think he was suited by dropping down in distance against Firefox because he could tank along, and he literally did tank along. But once again, he was against Firefox, and then beneath that, how much more depth there was there to the race. Oh my goodness, is Marlborough one of the most stunning and gorgeous looking chases you'd ever see. He went round, as you mentioned, in that race at Fairyhouse, and it was almost as he was going, look at me, I'm really good, I'm excellent. But the way he jumped, it was almost if he was he'd been doing it for years. His ears were pricked, he was bright, he was fresh, he was efficient. And you've got to remember he's up against the likes of Tully Hill and Kennel stable companion Asian Master. But at no point were you worried, and nor was Mark Walsh. She sort of took the race to them and said, right, if I'm going to be a champion, I already am winning the Triumph. I've got to show you how good I am. And he certainly was that, really, really good. I was really impressed by him. As for Gennard Lapan, how on earth do you get to the bottom of something so huge? How on earth do you keep galloping him away? I suppose with him, you can hold him up, and I would have thought he would have struggled around a place like Leopardstown, but he doesn't. He relished it. You wouldn't want that anywhere near you, because you just don't know the sort of ceiling of his ability. Obviously, he didn't win as if he was 150 to 1 chance last time out. He won nicely and caught the eye. But as for a classy looking chaser, a superb looking chaser, that's Marlborough, and there's so much more to come, isn't there?
Yeah, I'd imagine so. I'd find it very hard to take him on here. In Atlantique, I thought he impressed me now winning Nace, but I reckon that real soft ground probably brings out the best in Atlantique. You probably won't get that in Leopardstown. Leopardstown is normally a bit drier than you get it elsewhere. So yeah, Marlborough, like when you see him, he just catches your eye no matter where he is. I think Willie said when he came into the yard first day as a juvenile hurdler, he thought he was a chaser then. So you'd imagine he can kick on and go from here. He'd be really, really hard to beat. But still, a few interesting ones in there to test his credentials for this Arkle at the Cheltenham Festival in a few weeks' time. But we'll go on to the big race of the day, the 3:30, the Paddy Power Irish Gold Cup, and we've got a hot favourite in here, Galopin Des Champs, 8-15 favourite. I think if he can win this, he'll become the first horse since Florida Pearl in 2001 to win 3 consecutive Irish Gold Cups. Look, he's had his challengers coming up through the years, but he seems to put them away every time they come. He'll be a hard nut to crack here, Tanya. I suppose Factifile 7-2, the next in the betting, the most likely to take him on. Do you think, I suppose, looking back on their run here at Leopardstown, is there anything Factifile could do differently to try and crack Galopin Des Champs?
I don't think he can really, unless they shorten the distance by half a mile. unless that would happen. I don't think they can, because Galopin Des Champs sort of attacked the race and attacked the rivals, and just sealed how phenomenal he is. He's 6 from 7 from Leopardstown. He made it look easy in the Savile Shade. He really did make it look easy, and it's very, very hard to see any of the rivals turning him over. However, it will be a great point of reference, the race, and you might want to use it that way, because what do you want to see out the race? If you've backed Galopin already for the Gold Cup, you want him to win as he did in the Savills or similarly. But there's key horses in this race. I Am Maximus. What do you want from I Am Maximus? Now, last year, 12 months ago, it was a 4-runner race, and I Am Maximus finished third before going on to win at Aintree. He pulled up when we've seen him last time out. Where do you want him in the race, and where do you want him positioned? You would want him to run a lovely race in around 5th or 6th. I know your way you're thinking. Now, he ran a brilliant race in the Savills, but because everyone's focusing on Galopin and Factifile, they missed how, I know the way you're thinking, was still with them with 2 to jump. Now, he's another one that's got some interesting targets coming up. Is he going to get closer? Because the battle between Galopin and Factifile, I sense he is. I sense there's more to come from him. And then you look to Monty Star, and I mean, my head's in my hands, because this is a little bit of putty that you want. There's so much potential in Monty Star, and you're kind of disappointed, and that's really harsh to say. But on New Year's Day, I was hoping for a lot more against Embassy Gardens, and Embassy Gardens just taught Monty Star a lesson. And I think Embassy Gardens is being overlooked potentially for a place here, because Monty Star probably wants 3 miles plus now. He's a real plodder, whereas Embassy Gardens ran really nice without any sort of any recognition for that run. So it's kind of using it as a point of reference. What do you want to see from the others? Because hopefully we can all give the ultimate adulation to Galopan, because he is a superstar and he sets himself up brilliantly for a third consecutive win in the Gold Cup. But what do you want to see from the others? And I expect we're going to see a big run from the likes of, I know the way you're thinking, and maybe Embassy Gardens, either of those two, because particularly I know the way you're thinking. If you watch it again, watch the Savills again and see where they're all positioned and see what they can do differently. I don't think Mark Walsh can do much differently. He was beaten by 7.5 lengths, and I don't think he's going to get too much closer unless they shorten the distance.
Yeah, great summary of the race there. I'm not sure there's so much I can even add to that. I can't see anything beating Gallopin Des Champs, but like you said, I'd agree completely. Embassy Gardens. It was actually interesting Willie mentioning him at the Stable Tour the other week. He was kind of saying he kind of really didn't see out his season last year. I suppose really disappointed in the Grade 2 at the Cheltenham Festival, the National Hunt Chase. And he was kind of saying he might try and keep him fresher this year for his races. We haven't seen him in a whole while, obviously New Year's Day coming here. I think he's actually probably a great each way shout for this. He'll get the 3 places. I think he's as big as 12 to 1 in some places. So I think Embassy Gardens might be, if you're looking to have a bet outside of Gallopin Des Champs, a good each way shout for that one. So that's the Gold Cup wrapped up on the Saturday. Just a quick mention of a couple of the handicaps, I suppose. The 225 was a really, really interesting one. Speaking of that Willie Mullins Stable Tour, he was mentioning Meeting of the Waters is definitely one to watch out for in a handicap, and he somehow managed to sneak in down the bottom of this one. I think he was 45 on the ballot on the entry, so he was a long way down the ballot at declaration stage, but he got in here bottom weight. Rachel Blackmore on board, rated 147 over fences, I think. So coming in here for a rating of 112, it's be very, very hard to see him beat, you'd imagine. He's 2 to 1 favourite in here, so he'll be quite short in the day, but I think he's first run since joining the Mullins Yard over hurdle. So America 112 looks fairly exploitable there, I suppose, to say the least. And then the other handicap of the day, the 405 handicap chase over the 2 mile one. This is an interesting one, quite hard to crack, I thought. Gavin Cromwell obviously has a really, really strong hand in here. He's got the favourite 7 to 2. Midnight It Is under Cornerstone Walsh. She was a really good third in the Dan and Joan Moore Memorial Handicap Chase at Fairy House last time when Gavin had the 1, 2, 3. He's 7 to 2 favourite. But I just thought Ian Donoghue's runner in here, Liz Namult Lad, he ran a really good race when he won in Cheltenham at the October meeting. That was obviously over the 2 mile 4. He's dropping back in trip. But I just thought he travelled so well that day, jumped so well. He's running off the same rating here, 134. He's disappointed twice since. But if you can forgive him from that, you'd imagine there must have been something a little bit amiss at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. But coming back here, Ian Donoghu is quite a shrewd trainer, 25 to 1. Look, if you're looking for a big price each way bet, I wouldn't have massively strong opinions on that. But just looking through, my thought Liz Namult Lad was probably one a little bit overpriced in that. If he can replicate that Cheltenham form from the October meeting, he should have a bit of a shout in there. But the bumper then, just to give it a really quick mention before we move on to Sunday, it's normally one, I suppose we're waiting for a star to emerge in this bumper division. A high price Gordon Elliott runner. He can't dance. He costs a lot of money after winning a point-to-point for Harry Swan. Willie has a few in here. Green Splendor is the choice of Patrick Mullins, but I thought I started a joke for Charles Burns was really, really interesting. Feeney Maguire booked. There's been plenty of money floating around for this horse in the betting, so he'll be an interesting one there, but it's probably a watching brief to see what star bumper horses emerge from the Irish scene at least. But we'll go on to Sunday's racing. There's plenty more grade ones to get through on the day, and the first race we're going to chat about on the Sunday, the 110, the Ladbrokes Novice Chase, grade 1 over the 2 mile 5 furlongs, and this is a cracker. I was really excited when I saw the declarations for this one. Look, I suppose Ballyburn 4 to 7 favourite under Paul Townend. Plenty of people probably knock the festival, like you said at the start of the show, for having loads of Willie Mullins runners, but he's putting them all against each other here. Ballyburn, Champ Kiley and Imperi Pass, a really strong hand from the Willie Mullins team, and then you've got the pair from Gordon Elliott, Crow Park, and Better Days Ahead, who are 1-2 in a grade 1 over the 3 miles here over the Christmas period. Prairie Dancer and Arctic Skua make up the field. But I suppose to start with the favourite, Ballyburn, Tanya, stepping up and trip here. Do you think that might be the answer for him after he was kind of brushed aside, I suppose, by Sergino at Kempton?
Yeah, he lost. He had this air of invincibility, didn't he? And then suddenly he came into Kempton, and even before the race, the betting was pointing you in the direction of Sir Gino. But then you're racing at Kempton over 2 miles at one of the fastest tracks in the country. So you are going into Sir Gino territory, and it was on the 27th of December, the day after Constitution Hill. I mean, the hardest races, people joke over here that Constitution Hill has had is the gallop against Sir Gino. So Sir Gino himself, and providing he jumped, and Nicky Henderson kept saying that you haven't seen this horse jump yet, because everyone was with the doubt about Constitution. Are you going to put in the champion? No, you haven't seen this horse jump. And so it proved. We didn't realise just how good. We didn't realise it was going to be such a wow factor. And the victim, or the barometer, was the superb Ballyburn. And when you think it was over 2 miles, he's done brilliantly. The one thing I want to pick up with everyone, if they want to crab him, is Ballyburn at the last decided to chew the birch and go right through the last fence. Ordinarily, mere mortal horses would have either fallen or pulled up. Ballyburn decided to sprint, or was able, had the composure to pick itself up and sprint behind Sir Gino and reduce the deficit. And maybe that was because it was coming to a part of the distance that when Ballyburn starts to... But so before crabbing him, he was beaten 7.5, but he must have lost an enormous amount of ground. Yes, coming up in trip that's him. Is him. So now it is just seeing he's none the worse for that bad blunder at the last at Kempton, and we can see him back over his more comfortable distance, shall we say.
Yeah, for sure. You can see the case from stepping up. I'd say I'm breathing like he's definitely more of a 3 miler than a 2 miler. But like this race is really, really competitive. Like you've got three individual Grade 1 winners: Cham Kiley, Croke Park, and Perry Pass, the Cheltenham Festival winner. Better days ahead. Who would you think would be his most likely, I suppose, a head competitor coming into this? Like obviously in Perry Pass, really impressive in the Faugheen.
Yeah.
You've got the two from the 1-2 over 3 miles here at Christmas. And Cham Kiley could be a little bit of a forgotten horse, I suppose. He was a brilliant novice hurdler. He won the Laurels and Ace, didn't he, in his day? Missed a bit of time, but he was really good winning his beginners as well. So there'll be plenty of opposition here for Ballyburn.
Yeah, as for the Faugheen Novices Chase, I'm still trying to work out who I'm going to pick out of those two. I'll do that while I'm speaking about Empire Passe, which we believed was heading to Sandown, and then suddenly there was an about turn, and no, we're now going back to Leopardstown. He was the 2023 Barring Bingham winner, and he's been brilliant. I thought he was excellent last time out at Limerick. I thought that was a good a good run last time out at Limerick. He was very good, as he should have been, at Fairyhouse, and he came to Limerick, and I think he covered himself with glory, and he was given so much confidence in that Limerick race by Darrell. He rode him as if he was a champion, because he just held him up and then let him come into the race naturally, and he went on to win by 4 lengths, and he was hardly sort of pressured. But what does that gain you when you then come and take Ballyburn? Well, it's obviously saved energy, and the fact that he has been rerouted to here tells you that perhaps Willie didn't fancy taking on really deep, heavy ground at Sandown, because that was subject to inspections on Thursday. So that might be the reasoning, more so than worried about any of the opposition. As for the Faugheen Novices Chase, well, I don't know what on earth to pick. I mean, I'm looking again here. It's just, well, Croke Park and the long distance chase. Who to pick between Croke Park and Better Days Ahead? I just don't know. I really don't know. Whoever it is going to be the biggest danger for me against Ballyburn. And perhaps I've crossed out, initially I put Croke Park, crossed it out, and then put Better Days Ahead, because he was able to beat Slade Street by 4 lengths, and the jumping was better. It just for me was it was just a brilliant race between the two of them. There's a whisker between the two of them, and I suspect Gordon Elliott's put them both in here because he doesn't know. He thinks they're both excellent. He doesn't know.
There definitely isn't a whole pile between them. I suppose Croke Park kind of surprised a few people when he won the Drinmore at Fairy House, but he backs it up definitely at Leopardstown at Christmas. My worry for those two, I'd probably put them down as more proper 3 miles. They probably want the 3 miles, so maybe they might get a little bit closer. Better days ahead for sure. Obviously, I think he was actually in front of Croke Park crossing the line. So dropping back to the 2 mile 5 against a horse like Ballyburn, who showed he's had plenty of speed. I think it might be kind of difficult for him. I was a little bit surprised Gordon put them in here. He likes to normally go straight to Cheltenham with some of these horses, but he's making a really interesting contest here. And Perry Pass, I'd say he could be the fly in the ointment if there is one for Ballyburn. Obviously a high class hurdler, winner at Cheltenham Festival as a novice hurdler as well. But I'd find it hard enough to take on Ballyburn here. I think 2 mile 5. The only maybe issue I might have with him going for the likes of Brown Advisory is the way he kind of races. You know, he kind of uses himself plenty. He's quite forward going. Maybe keen is the wrong word, but he puts his head down. He kind of uses plenty of energy, I suppose. But I'm sure Paul Townend will get him plenty of relax for here. And I'd say he'll be a tough nut to crack here. I'd say the betting has it fairly right. I'd be slow enough to take him on here without the 3 places each way. I'm only 7 runners, but should be a really interesting contest either way. There's some really high class novices in this one, but we'll move on, try and keep it rolling towards the other grade ones of the day. The 140 next, the Tattersall's novice hurdle over the 2 miles grade 1 event. I was a little bit surprised with how the bookmakers priced this one. It's 8-11 Kopek boards, 15-8 K Doughty, and 3-1 Blue Devassi. Kopek boards, I suppose we'll start with the favourite, Tanya. He obviously won his maiden hurdle here over the Christmas period, but I thought his jumping left plenty to be desired, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah, he. Well, I've even put on my notes. He made your eyebrows raise at his jumping, and that's why I agree with you. I'm surprised how they've priced it up. I understand why, because even with that bad jumping, he's beat Cowabunga, who's gone on to win Winnie Hill, but he's beaten Zillow as well. And I was really disappointed the way that Zillow ran the other day. But he's jumping. There is certainly one in this. There's a couple in this contest that are really, really experienced and will pick up on any sort of errors. And you can do that when you're this young novice and there isn't too much depth to the race behind that. But goodness me, you can't do that today in this race, this grade 1. I mean, that was in just a maiden hurdle. You can ill afford to keep making those errors because each time that's going to be an extra bit of distance you're giving us up to conceding to your rivals. Even the stable companions are going to be there. Paul's on it. Fair dues. Paul's on Kopek board, but I just think it's too inexperienced in a race where some of these are real quality performers already.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. His jumping's going to have to be an awful lot sharper. Like to go into a grade 1, he definitely can't jump like that. Look, maybe he's schooling an awful lot better at home, but I'd be relatively keen on this K Doughty. Obviously he won his maiden hurdle over the 2 mile 4, but just the way he jumped and he travelled that day, like he was coming into after falling in Navan, but didn't show any ill effects of that fall. Went down to the first hurdle, pricked his ears and jumped it well. Just looks a really, really straightforward horse. Obviously, look, the form of his maiden hurdle maybe took a little bit of a knock. That Cocktail Davin was obviously beaten by Cowabunga, who was behind Kopek boards that day. But I just think maybe Henry's horses aren't really running up to this period and to maybe to their best. So I maybe put a line through that. I wouldn't be reading too much into it. And I thought Kate Doughty won with plenty in hand in Leopardstown. Look, even though it was only I think half length he won by, but I don't think dropping back in trip will be a massive issue. And kind of similar to Majbur, like just seeing him in the flesh, he's a stunning horse. Really kind of gave him as a dark horse to follow towards the start of the season as well. So he's obviously a horse who's been showing plenty at home. And I just look at the prices. I think 15-8. He was really impressive here at Christmas as well. I'd probably take on the favourite with him. I'm not sure. Were you willing to take him on?
I'm taking on the favourite. Don't worry about that. But not with Kate Doughty, although that he's a lovely horse. And you mentioned Milesborough. You can. Everyone can look at the Auteuil film the form. Ironically, he finished behind Malsborough in Ortoy, and there's some other horses within that race. Just shows you how good. And the first time we saw it, Cade Dorothy just lost. He lost his discipline. He lost attention. He was distracted, and he just fell. And then he came out and showed all's well. In a convoluted kind of way, I'm a huge fan. I'm going to get to who I'm picking. I'm a huge fan of Carafon. And Carafon had come in with some lovely form where he was fifth in a juvenile hurdle here behind Calaconte, Carguess, Nürburgring and Batman Girac. That was back in 2023. He made his reappearance and he won nicely, beating You Had Me in Stitches. And You Had Me in Stitches ran a nice quiet race in second and subsequently come out and won. And then understandably, Willie said, right, let's put Carafon in grade 1. And it was against Romeo Coolio. And lo and behold, who was second in that race? Because Carafon was alongside it as they turned for home at Leopardstown over Christmas. And then suddenly Bleu de Vassé and Romeo Coolio left Carafon behind. Bleu de Vassé couldn't get anywhere near stable companion Romeo Coolio, but still went away from the remaining rivals and is a very tall, big, muscular, strong horse. And I sense that he doesn't fit to me, Bleu de Vassé doesn't look like a novice, if you get me. He looks an accomplished sort. So he seems to, for me, have an advantage over these inexperienced sorts in the fact that he's battle hardened and barring Romeo Coolio would have won a grade 1. So already. So I'm going to go with Bleu de Vassé at total value price. And I think that if he continues to make his errors in his fences, Quebec de Bordeaux, that'll cost him. And Cade Dorothy wouldn't want Bleu de Vassé just swinging behind him as they turn for home. I just think he accelerated after the last Bleu de Vassé.
Yeah, Bleu de Vassé, he's a horse I was a fan of coming into that race over the Christmas period. He definitely looks a better horse on nicer ground, as I think Gordon mentioned that he'd won a few bumpers on testing ground. He didn't love it, so can see the case for him, and it'll be a good, I suppose, marker against that Romeo Coolio form to see how the likes of Cade Doughty and Quebec de Boards can handle Bleu de Vassé here. So it'll be good going forward to follow, I suppose. But Cade Doughty for me in this one, I just love his attitude, I suppose, on top of everything else in here. But we'll move on. You mentioned JJ Slavin getting a ride there in Carafon. He's got a great ride here again since taking the Isaac Munir and Simon Swade job. El Fabiolo making his long-awaited return. We haven't seen him since he was second to John Bon in the Celebration Chase last April at Sandown. Back here at 8-1, I suppose if you showed someone this card last year, they'd probably think you were mad. But he's a bit of an outsider here. Gaelic Warrior, stablemate 4-6 favourite. The choice of Paul Town, and interesting, a first-time tongue strap fitted on Gaelic Warrior. Marine National 7-2. Solness, who caused a bit of an upset over the Christmas period here. Danny Mullins on board 7-1. Gaelic Warrior, Tanya, I'd imagine plenty of punters will be keen enough to take him on, given his record around Leopardstown. But what did you make of his run here at Christmas?
Yeah, I made of it that it will be very hard to convince me that the form will be turned around. He had, a bit like Ballyburn, he carried an air of immortality about him. And then these two runs we've seen him in, so disappointed when he was beaten by his stable companion in LA Tom at Punchestown. He's even mainly because LA Tom's jumping left so much to be desired, and he still got up to win. Every time he came to the last 3 fences, he put in an extra stride and whacked right through it. And Gaelic Warrior still couldn't win. So then he went here to the, as you mentioned, the Leopardstown run. He was quite rightly favourite because you can always forgive them their first run back. And he'd had a little bit of an absence as well, but just something didn't seem right. He wasn't travelling like the aura that he had last season, and maybe because he's kind of stepping up from novice to big boy land, he hasn't grown up yet. Tongue tie might be the reason what happened. The need of the tongue tie, but he's not for me. There must be a massive book somewhere which has a pack of reasons why Marine Nationale keeps getting beaten. They seem to refer to it regularly, but they don't. He's got to do it right one day, but he worries about going into his fences. If you watch him going into his fences, he puts not just one stride in. No. Oh, I'll put another in, and I'll get over. And then I'll go to the next one. No, I'll put one, not more than one, but two, and then I'll get over. It just shows you how classy and speedy Marine Nationale is, but you can't do that in a 2-mile chase. But if you watch him closely and analyse him, he'll put in a tiny extra jump. Comparing him with 400 hurdle runners, they can either do 16 or 17 strides between their hurdles. If you put in an extra one, you're beat for your medal. Marine Nationale, that's a comparison. He puts in the extra one. You can't afford to do that. Solness, I can't see why he can't win again. He won with so much in hand. He was touted. It was a massive... they put him up as a tip. I think Price-wise put him up as a tip. He was touted, and he did it brilliantly, Solness. But as you say, there's a big shadow across all of them. Because, as you say, if you gave them last year's race card, suddenly you look and you think, you kind of tap in your laptop screen, Fabiolo's here, okay, and 8-1, or I don't know what he is, 7-6-1. He's a 2023 Arkle winner. Even that line of form where he was in April beaten 4 lengths by John Bon potentially stands head and shoulders above the form here. And JJ Slevin could come in here. He won this race last year as well, didn't he, El Fabiolo? I think he did.
He did,
yeah. So he's defending his crown as well. So it's like a statement right in the middle. If you look at all their ratings, nothing can compare to El Fabiolo. So what do? I think I chicken out of it and I go each way Solness and probably see El Fabiolo win, and I'll be one of the first to give it a big cheer back. And it will pull at the heartstrings, because it'd be good to see him back. But some of the others, like Gaelic Warrior, Marine Nationale, they have the ability, but they haven't grown up yet. They're still in their puberty, shall we say, from novice to big chases, whereas Solness is already a good 2-mile chaser.
Yeah, I know, I'd agree. I'm keen to take on Gaelic Warrior, and like going through them, you summarised it already. Marine Nationale, I don't fancy him. Quick City Os, maybe just a little bit below this level, I think. Captain Guinness, bit in and out, doesn't really perform to his best around Leopardstown, I'd say. He's been beaten in this a few times. I just think El Fabiolo 8-1 looks a massive price, like 8 runners each way, even if he is a little bit like lacking for fitness. Like he's rated a head and shoulders above anything in this field. His best performances, I think, have come around Leopardstown as well. That Irish Arkle win a couple of years ago was breathtaking. A brilliant winner of this last year as well. I'm probably willing to take a chance. Willie can get them plenty fit enough to go first time. I don't think he's going to be lacking so much that he won't be in the first 3 here. I just think 8-1 about him looks huge. If you showed it to anyone last year, they think you were mad. El Fabio, looking forward to seeing him back. Hopefully he's as good as he once was. His jumping probably is the issue with him. He made a few clangers in the past, but El Fabiolo for me looks just way too big there. But we'll go on to the big race of the day, the 320, the Irish champion hurdle over the 2 miles, a small but select field here. And I suppose everyone was waiting to see the jockey bookings for this one, but Paul Townend has stayed loyal to Stateman. A little bit surprising maybe for some people. Plenty of people were expecting him to ride him, but he's 7-4. Lossiemouth 4-7, getting first look at who's riding her now. Danny is on board. Danny has won on her at the Dublin Racing Festival in the past. Look, we'll start with Lossiemouth, I suppose. Tanya, I suppose plenty of people think she's the main contender against Constitution Hill coming forward. Maybe didn't show herself to the best in Kempton, but coming back here, do you think she's, I suppose, justified odds-on favourite against a dual Irish champion hurdle winner in Stateman?
It's the allowance, isn't it? It's and I thought people said I thought she ran well against the old brute at Kempton, the old Constitution Hill. I thought she
she did run very well indeed. It's not easy when you're in these small, intimate fields of 4 runners and it's then turned into a match. She'd just come out of a rare old tussle with Tiapu, and then she's asked to once again run round a really tight track. The home, you go into Constitution Hill's home and you go and take him on despite you getting the allowance. I thought she confirmed her ability, if not enhanced it, really. Whereas I like to extract myself away from obviously Constitution Hill biased. I want to sort of applaud what Lossiemouth did there, and she did really well. And also, she was dropping down in distance again. She'd been running over a little bit further. She was going back to the 2 miles at Kempton, which is really, really tight. So you've then got to change your tactics to some extent. But then what can you do against Constitution Hill? You don't know how to play him. So I think this is a great opportunity for Danny Mullins, as he had plenty of winners for Willie last year, as if we will remember, and I would possibly side with her in this makeup of this race, because once again, potentially not being mean to the other 3 runners in the race, it will be set up as a match. And I understand why Paul's on State Man. He wants to be part of history in the fact that State Man's going for his 3rd straight victory in the race, and potentially he will be on State Man to go to Cheltenham again and win a champion hurdle. So you want to be on the horse that you're going to be on in the festival, or is this kind of are we speculating that Lossiemouth isn't going to be on the main race on Tuesday, i.e. at 3:30 or whenever it is, and Lossiemouth's going to be in the mares? I don't know. I would speculate that, and he wants to see what it is with. He wants to get to the bottom of State Man, and I suspect the first run at Punchestown you can forgive because it was the allowance. I just don't know. That was just too bad to be true at Leopardstown last time out. But even so, if you are beaten by Lossiemouth, you're then left scratching your head, aren't you, really?
Yeah, it'll be an intriguing race, and tactics I think could be interesting here. You'd wonder if Daddy Longlegs in here to make a bit of running for State Man in the same colours. Not sure what they're going to be hoping there, but you'd imagine he won't want Danny Mullins looming behind him anyway. Look, State Man, his runs this year, I suppose they kind of leave you scratching your head a little bit. I suppose in the Morgiana, they were kind of saying, look, he'll come on plenty for fitness wise. Ran a nice race there, I suppose, behind Brighter Days Ahead, but the last day, like, I know they went off very hard, but he just never really raised the leg. He didn't kind of try and challenge to go for the gallop at all. So you'd have to say it wasn't the real State Man. But at the same time, you'd probably, in the back of my mind anyway, I'm probably thinking maybe he's just not the same level of horse he was last year. You know, it's hard to come back year in, year out. And Lossiemouth, she's a filly on the up. I'd be surprised now, to be honest, if she did reroute towards the mare's hurdle. Willie kind of sounded all steam ahead, and he kind of thought he'd have her a lot more wound up for going this champion hurdle pace here now. So look, it's going to be informative. 4-7, she's not a bet for me, but I'd be slow enough to bet her against her as well. Look, Paul Town and Riding State Man. It's going to be a cracker. I can't see past Lossiemouth. Look, if you want to back a champion hurdle winner there at 7-4, you probably won't get much better chances. But it's definitely Lossiemouth there for me. I think Danny Mullins knows her well and can get the best out of her as well. But look, it's cracking day's race, and we've gone through all the grade ones now. But just before I leave you go, Tanya, we'll have a quick look at the handicaps of the day on Sunday. I think you had a couple of fancies in there. Was it which ones were you looking at?
2:45. I was looking against the 2 mile, 5.5 furlong handicap chase, grade 3. I was already waiting to back Pinkerton to win the December Gold Cup at Cheltenham, but potentially understandably he was rerouted to Leopardstown. He waited for a couple of weeks later. I just thought it was brilliant when obviously he won the Galway Plate. He then Noel Mead ran him on the flat and then came out to Down Royal and finished second to Founder 50. But goodness me, how well did he run in the Paddy Power chase? It was just fantastic. I was looking out for those red and black colours. Didn't see him until, I suppose, 2 hours. He was brought so softly into the contest. It was an excellent ride. And I suppose they were trying to see just how good he was. And he's very good, even though he's gone up a lot from the Galway Plate. But if he got third, he's 9 lengths behind. But in fourth was Nick Rocket, who's gone on to win the Thaisties. And then in seventh was Three Car Bragg, who suddenly woke up and showed how good that he could be when winning at Navan. And if you look further down the placings in that Fabiolo chase, as always, you're going to see horses that have come out and run really well. Subsequently, Pinkerton did its chances, no problem whatsoever. I don't mind it's gone up a couple of pounds in the rating. And I think Pinkerton has got every chance to win that 245 on Sunday. It is so competitive. And the way he creeps into races, it's just a huge asset. Something like that. It's a massive asset. So I'm Pinkerton
in that one. I actually quite like Search for Glory in there. Just give him a quick mention. I liked him going to. I thought he might have gone for the TSTs. Operating a 144. Novices actually have a great record in this race. I think the last two winners have both come from Novice Company, Hartwood and the Goffer. Look, his form over fence isn't a million miles off the top level. I suppose he won his beginners in Galway, beat Sama Jess. Sama Jess came out and won next time. Went on then ran a cracker in the Florida Pearl at Punchestown, and I thought his run in the Faugheen at Christmas at Limerick was really, really good as well. He was third behind Imperi past that day. Quite unexposed over fences, rating a 144, doesn't look too prohibitive at all. I think he's probably a horse who can really excel in this kind of company, maybe a little bit off that grade 1 level, but he's not too far off at all. So I think 9-1 Sam Ewing, Gordon Elliot's not a bad shout in there. And then just in one more in the 350, a handicap hurdle over the 2 miles, I thought James's Gate definitely stood out here.
Yeah.
Just seeing Derek O'Connor booked, I think you were kind of thinking along the same lines. Look, he probably a horse, came from Willie Mullins, obviously missed plenty of time, maybe took a little bit of time to find his feet again after being injured, but I just thought, looking back through his last 2 runs, like his maiden hurdle form looks really, really good. The third and fourth both came out and won the next day. The second was second next time out as well. He won his rated novice hurdle then next time, and maybe the winning margin doesn't tell the full story. Kind of lost his legs after the last hurdle and allowed the second horse to catch up with him a bit. But I think he's a horse operating a 136. He can progress plenty. They mentioned the Coral Cup after that race, but this probably fitted in nicely for him. I'd say he could run a massive one here. You were kind of thinking along the same lines, Tanya, I think, were you?
Yeah, I was, and I just sort of clicked on his entries. I know they mentioned the Coral Cup, but there are some Grade 1 entries floating around. That's understandable because I don't think they have got to the bottom of him yet. The run at Punchestown where he beat 40 Coates and McClory. Well, he'll reoppose McClory, who was quietly ridden into the contest, and that's got a little bit of potent acceleration. Nothing like James's Gate, because even though he won by 4.5, he could have won by further. Now that was over a little bit, like 2 miles 3, I think it was. He then had the cheek to drop down to 2 miles, and just as you said, he eased to success over 2 miles. So it's just it's just Martin Brazel must be rubbing his hands together. He's got this versatile and agile horse in James's Gate. He's got, as you mentioned, Derek O'Connor. We're in here. We've gone up to 136, but that's nowhere near the ceiling of James's Gate. And we're going to find that out, obviously, on Sunday, because it is a very tasty race full of some unknowns and some really good horses. But James's Gate looks the one that for me, the one that they've got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, me too. 10-1 there looks a good each way bet. A horse who's third in a Cheltenham bumper in his old days with Willie Mullins, I suppose. So he's obviously won plenty of ability to go forward from there. But Tanya, we've gone through, I think, most of the races across the weekend at Leopardstown. Thanks very much for all your contributions, and thanks everyone for tuning into the show as well. If you're going to have a bet this weekend, make sure to gamble responsibly. And we will be back on Monday, the bank holiday Monday, to review all of the action from the week gone by. But if you like the content, make sure and like and subscribe to the channel.